Hello everyone, so I just finished playing A Plague 12 Requiem. So this is a sequel to the 2019 game, A Plague Tale Innocence. It is, of course, an action-adventure survival horror still the game, and I was able to play this through my Game Pass app on my PC. So you will also be able to find this on Xbox Series X consoles, PlayStation 5 as well, but yeah, I was able to do it through PC. It took me about 12 hours to get through this game. I definitely didn't look around every nook and cranny looking for all the collectibles, things like that. But at a decent amount of time, I've heard that it takes people usually anywhere around 15 to 20 hours to complete it. So there is quite a lot of gameplay, a lot more than the first one within this game, but it is developed by Asobo Studio and published by Focus Entertainment. So yes, without further ado, let me get into my review for A Plague Tale Requiem. So this game takes place about 6 months after the events of the first game, so they're still siblings, Amicia and Hugo. They are traveling to the south of France to look for an island which may provide a cure for Hugo's mysterious blood disease, the macula. It is getting worse. He is having worse and worse seizures kind of as the events through this game go. The macula is starting to take control of him, so they think that this island is where they'll find the cure and also to where they'll find isolation for Hugo. So his, again, ability to control these rats will, well, one, he won't have to do so because they're going to be a place where there is no rats, and also two, just to keep everyone around them safe. So Hugo constantly is being overwhelmed by his new emerging powers, while Misia must face the emotional trauma of basically killing her enemies for her brother, keeping her whole family safe, herself safe, and of course, too, just all the actions and everything that she's lost because of this, and of course, too, everything that is dying around her because of her brother. All this trauma that is really sinking within her character that haunts her throughout to the entirety of this game. So they definitely, the first game really went, surprised me a little bit. It really went into some very dark themes and very dark events, and this game, in that fact, and basically everything in this game does what a sequel should do. It ramps it up by 11 and just builds upon everything that the first game made and just does it bigger, better, and a lot more polished. There is a lot of great things that is done within this game. I did quite enjoy the story. There were a few times where I felt like certain sections dragged on a little too long. Maybe some conversations could have been skipped down a little bit. Some sequences could be shortened a little bit. So that did affect the pacing a little bit throughout this game, but I was able to get through it not without really any major issues about, again, the pacing of the story, how the story was told, and just the overarch of the story. I thought it was very, very well done. It is dark, it is brutal, it definitely feels like a gut punch at a lot of pointed times in the story. There's some really great characters who, again, too, there's times where they're good, there's times where there's bad, there's times where they have to push those boundaries in order to complete their goals and even to question their morals, who they are as people. Are they good? Are they bad? What side are they on here? Things like that. And all that commentary I thought was done very, very well. Who they can trust, when they can trust people, the people that they do and the people that they don't trust. When can they trust them? Lots of really, really great character moments and character building throughout this game. A lot more in this game than they did in the first, and just really, really great storytelling. Really, really good voice acting for the most part. Within this game, the parts that I didn't like the voice acting in were sometimes there was just some very cheesy written dialogue. Mostly when Amici's character gets really, really mad, or Hugo's character gets mad at the world and other people. It can come off a little bit cheesy, some of their one-liners that they're saying, things like that. But like that's just kind of on the writers, I want to say. You can feel the emotion in the voices and everything. So yeah, the voice acting is very, very incredible, and it's all bolstered by super good soundtrack. Like one of the best I've heard this year. Just all those great like 13th, 14th century French instruments and strings and things like that really build ambiance in terms of just having to be epic for a lot of the almost Uncharted like action and Uncharted action escape like sequences that you have to do. There's times where rats will just come out. So all the horror sequences, there's a lot of really good stringy horror music that I thought was really, really great. It just really bolsters the effect of course, what the audience is supposed to be feeling, what the voice actors are trying to portray within their characters, their voices, things like that, and just what's going on screen with the absolutely beautiful, amazing graphics. I was able to max out the settings on this one, so I was able to get the ray tracing, all those really, really great lighting effects that just bolstered again my experience with the game. But it looks incredible. It's easily one of the best looking games this year. There is so much detail within the world, especially when you get more into the things to do with the macula. There's some really gross, creepy structures that you come across, but everything looks very, very nice. There's great effects with the lighting. Of course, do collision with grass, tall grass, hiding areas, the environments, lots of really, really good things that also work its way into the puzzles, which I found were really, really good. But yeah, this game looks absolutely stunning and beautiful, and the gameplay is a lot smoother this time around. I did find that the first game was extremely easy and one of the easiest games that I played in a while once I played it. But yeah, this game definitely changes the structure of the game a little bit. Instead of kind of linear sections, they do open it up and make it a little more sandboxy. There's a lot of ways that you can approach the combat or the stealth. Basically, every section you go into, there's a few different ways to progress it. Stealth is definitely going to be the most rewarding. It's going to be the most tedious, but there's a lot more mechanics now where you can hide under desks, crawl through tall grass, a bunch of things like that, and a bunch of new weapons that are brought into your arsenal to play the stealth. It's still too the sling feels absolutely amazing to use, but you don't want to be using that all the time. You can't use it all the time, especially when enemies have helmets. It's not going to do anything to them. The same thing too, if you use it, it is louder than going up and either knifing them or just sneaking by them. There's a lot of things that you can do to distract enemies in this game, where you're mostly just throwing rocks at certain environments, like the armored troves that soldiers are leaving behind in their encampments and things like that. So there's a few things that you can do, but I did find I suck at stealth games, but it was pretty easy on me in that sense where if I got caught, so I would have a lot of people on me, but with all these other stealth mechanics, jumping in the buildings, hiding under chairs, things like that, I was either able to escape detection or get into the next section, basically opening up a door and shutting it behind you to move on to the next section. I was able to do that by running away pretty fast, again, to just ducking and diving between these structures. So even though they're stealth mechanics, they can really help you when you're trying to evade enemies during, again, conflict, when you might not have the weapons at the time to take them down. There's some great things that you can do where you knock like the slings off of, or sorry, the armor off of the more heavy based enemies, and then their back or chest will be exposed and you can hit them with an arrow and kill them that way. Just a lot of ways that you can take down enemies, or even to take down the rats, where they add tar. So if there's like a hard to reach spot, you want to get to a treasure chest, you can either use like a way to throw down a pot that'll create a fire for a limited amount of time, that or tar that you can run around for a limited amount of time on, grab what you need to, get back as it's flaming, and the rats will go away from it. The rats are of course absolutely terrifying, and with Hugo's uncontrollable power coming in, there's some great sequences, again almost Uncharted like action sequences where you're running away from the rats and whole cities are being destroyed behind you. It looks very, very like amazing and terrifying in the sequences that they need to. They just the ambiance and the detail that they put into this world really, really was effective in those scenarios, either where you're exploring these creepy destroyed ruins by the rats, or like as they're happening, as they're falling apart around you. It's really, really fun and beautiful and disturbing to look at, but something great nonetheless. There are a lot more upgrade systems within this game. There's a bit of a skill tree where basically you have to collect tools and little parts in and around the world. I didn't spend too much time again exploring these runes, so I didn't get a ton of the upgrades, but definitely it's really, really useful to get up recycling. So at the bottom there's one that recycles, so if you have a full inventory, you'll break down the materials of, again, to just the environment instead of leaving it because you can't grab it. Break it down into materials, and then you can upgrade a little bit faster that way. That's really good. There's great upgrades you can get for your slings, for your crossbows, a bunch of things like that that I do highly recommend looking for and doing, because it will make your life a lot easier within the end game of this. There's also too just great sequences within this game where it's going to kind of change the way that you play in most games. So you really have to think about the story, your relationship with Hugo, Amicia's relationship with Hugo and her family and whatnots to shape the decisions. They really get into it near the end of the game. And again, just deliver some very heart crushing things. All the new characters that come into this I found were very, very good and had their great motivations. Again, too, there's times where they're great, there's times where they're bad. They just felt like really great written characters, very effective characters. So I do have to applaud them in that way. But yeah, no, everything was ramped up in this game. It was a lot more difficult than the first one, but thank goodness, because I think it needed that difficulty curve to make it, again, a lot more enjoyable to play, a lot more fun to play, and a lot more challenging. I found it really worked in that way, and I like the ways that they were able to incorporate these, again, make it more sandboxy, which can make it more difficult by adding all these different enemy types, all these different environments. There was a few times where I had a few glitches. Some of the animations in the combats aren't the greatest when soldiers get close to you. They'll kind of like do a headbutt and knock you down, and you get into this annoying little sequence where sometimes you can't move out of it, and the soldiers will come and kill you. Or there was a time where a soldier was able to like clip onto me from like 20, 30 meters away and get me into that sequence, and then Misia basically slid herself into a corner like I was being like Magneto was pushing me or someone was using that force to push me into a corner, and then I died because I couldn't move that way. But those were things that only happens like once or twice throughout my entire playthrough, and once I reloaded that save after dying, it was fine. I didn't have the problem again. So little things here and there that were a little annoying. There's sometimes during the puzzles where you'll walk up and Amicia, even though you're holding down the button and says to, will kind of glitch out because you walked into it too fast, things like that. I do wish that sometimes too there would have been a little bit more of a in some sequences there were, but some of the puzzles are not really all that clear as to what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to go, things like that. I wish there was some more audio cues where character you're with or Amicia herself would say something like, "Oh, what's that over there?" Like little things like that to kind of guide you to it, because there's a lot of times where the game isn't clear as to what you're supposed to be doing in terms of the puzzles, some of the combats, or even to where you're just supposed to be going some of the times. I wish that there was a little bit more of that dialogue to help out a little bit instead of leaving you in the dark and like again too it's just two or three characters being absolutely silent with one another. Sometimes it did take you a little bit out of that conversation, but again the dialogue and most everything in this game is pretty spot on for the most part, and it's structured very decently. But yeah, really, with everything taken together, this was a big step up for the Plague Tale series. Stick around for the after credits. There is something within this that I'm not certain how they're going to pull off. It's just basically a tease for what the next game could entail, and I don't know if they will be making a next game, but I just it would be absolutely brutal if they went through with making a third one. So we'll have to see if they do go through with that. But I found the story was structured very, very well. The gameplay was ramped up. The story was ramped up. The music was ramped up. Everything was ramped up in a way that did make this very, very enjoyable. Very, very enjoyable to play. I don't know if I could recommend the full, like here in Canada, $80 price tag on the game. But if you have Game Pass, I do definitely recommend picking this one up for that subscription. It's very, very well worth a playthrough. Both games are, but I'm going to have to give A Plague Tale Requiem a 7.5 out of 10. Really, really enjoyed my time with it. Definitely have to recommend it. Again, to full price, I would say maybe wait for a sale for this to go down closer to $60 Canadian, or maybe even lower than that. It's the 50s if you haven't played the other games quite a bit. But it is a few steps up really from the previous game, so I do have to tip my hats to them on that one, because it was a very, very well made game and I enjoyed the entirety of my time playing it. But if you played A Plague Tale Requiem, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. And of course, if you like this review, definitely give it a thumbs up, and you can check out everything I do on this channel through, well, I'll have links and playlists up top here for convenience sake. Thank you for subscribing and turn that little ringer on so you know when I upload new videos. If you want to check out the description of this video and my channel bio, there's a link to the Medium Mountain, which is my Discord where we talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, pretty much everything that's awesome in this world. So you can definitely join that amazing community, help make it even more amazing than it is already. And yeah, just awesome, guys.
Sky blue eyes, I see a world behind them. No more time sinking into the side.